Okay, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's AEPA webinar. My name is Kara Hart, and I represent the state of Connecticut on the board of the Association of Educational Purchasing Agencies, better known as AEPA. AEPA is a national purchasing cooperative made up of representatives from educational service centers from 31 states serving as the board of AEPA. Together, we conduct national bids on behalf of our members and extend those competitively awarded contracts to schools, municipalities, and nonprofits in all 50 states. By working together, we alleviate the burden of our customers having to go out to bid themselves, and our collective purchasing power allows us to secure significant savings through volume-based purchasing. We currently have over 80 awarded vendor partners across more than 32 categories, including turf, tracks, courts, instructional and school supplies, maintenance and custodial products, cybersecurity solutions, and much more. And every year we add additional categories. This year, we're proud to be celebrating our 25th anniversary, which is a milestone that reflects our continued growth in membership, vendor partnerships, and total sales. Our monthly webinar series is designed to provide timely, informative content to our customers while also increasing awareness of AEPA and the high-quality vendor solutions through our partners. So in today's session, you'll hear from Jeremy Dombeck, Cooperative Partnerships and Government Affairs Manager for Hellas Construction. AEPA has two contracts with Hellas, one for turf and one for sports lighting. Jeremy today will give us a history of turf, and we're going to leave time for questions at the end, so please feel free to submit your questions during the chat at any time. And this session is being recorded for those who may want to revisit later or share it out. We will post it to our website. And now I will turn it over to Jeremy.
Thanks, Kara. First of all, just want to welcome everybody. I think this is an outstanding idea. It's just a testament to the hard work that AEPA does to support their vendors, get the word out. Just a top-notch organization, and we've been a long-lasting partnership with the AEPA. And when she reached out for us to do this presentation, we jumped on it. So a little bit background on me. I don't know how qualified I am to give this presentation, but before I got into this job, I've been here for a little over 3.5 years. But in my prior life, for 22 years, I was a educator, head football coach, administrator here in the state of Oklahoma. Also was a Division I football player. I played at the University of Wyoming, if we have any Cowboy fans out there. So I have experience playing on some of these earlier generations of turf that we'll be going over. And I'm old enough, I really didn't have the privilege to play on the good stuff, what we have now, but I coached a lot of games on it. And so I'm passionate about this subject matter. Our industry has seen a lot of challenges, and it just amazes me is all companies that provide this service for the research and development that they put into making the product better, to making it safer, is really second to none. So I'll get started and dive into this. I do want to say that I know we're saving questions for the end, but if there's something that sticks out to you, I'd like to be more than just a narrator of the slides, so to speak. So if you want to jump in, and I think Kara's kind of moderating this thing. If you have a question, send it in the chat, whatever, if we have a good stopping point. Because if I just read through these slides, we wouldn't be here very long. I am aware of your time. We're all busy, so I don't want to bore you to death over this, but we'll go ahead and get started. So clicking through this first slide here, this amazed me the first time I learned this. The first application for the patent of synthetic turf was in 1931. And obviously we're not going to read through the whole patent over there, but it was granted in 1936. So the idea of artificial turf or artificial grass has been around going on almost 100 years now. Okay, so a little definition here. Surface characterizing the invention is illustrated in the drawing. Figure 1 represents a piece of suitable felt of fibrous material, preferably a coarse, open curled hair felt made from curled hair of animal tails and manes. The material may be impregnated with a suitable waterproof binding medium, such, for instance, as the aqueous rubber dispersion, which is to be preferred. So I think that's kind of interesting that the first patent issued was turf was made out of manes of wild horses. So what really spurred, I put in our description, there was a federal initiative coming out of post World War II. You know, America saw this huge industrial boom, urbanization, all this stuff going on. And then we had a little bit of Cold War anxiety, but our military leaders noticed that about half of the men that showed up on the draft boards throughout our country were deemed physically unfit to serve in our military. So recognize the problem. So what developed out of that is the Ford Foundation and Educational Facilities Laboratories. So it was a call to action, basically. So it said originally there may have been living lawns and playing fields, but the scuffle of too many feet soon turned the grass to gravel, the gravel to dirt and mud. Whoever invents for rooftop and playground a material that looks like grass, acts like grass, turf-like substance on which a ball will bounce and a child will not, a covering that brings a slice of spring to Scarsdale to 14th Street in April, will have struck a blow for stability in the big city. I think that's very interesting. And so, since this initiative, the main goal for everybody in our industry was to create a surface that looked like grass, played like grass, but it wasn't grass. Didn't turn brown, didn't turn to mud, didn't have to water it, didn't have to fertilize it. And everything since then, 60 years have gone by, has been improving this product. All the R&D, all the innovation. And so what did that lead to? So Chemstrand is a company that won the race, so to speak. It was a division of Monsanto. It was called Chemstrand, was a textile manufacturing company. And basically, they did the first turf installation in Moses Brown School in Providence, Rhode Island. And you can kind of see that. This actually, the big picture up top here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, is, and also Chemstrand famously led into AstroTurf, which we call the Kleenex. So anytime, somebody refers to artificial turf, they usually say AstroTurf. And it's because it went down on the Astrodome. So that was what we called, and so basically I'm going to take you now. Do we have any questions that came through so far, Kara? Good, just keep rolling. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is kind of take us through, and this is 30,000 foot view. We're not going to really dive into the weeds, but generations of artificial grass, artificial turf. So Gen 1, AstroTurf. This is kind of what I played on. Back in the day, the old Nebraska UTEP had it and all that good stuff. It was basically a glorified concrete pad, but we'll get into that. It was a non-textured directional nylon non-filled, and it did have a little pad over the top of concrete. So what were the pros of it when we invented this? No water, chemicals, limited maintenance, unlimited usage. You don't have the brown spots, you don't turn to mud, and it was a predictable surface. If you're playing baseball or whatever, you're not going to hit a rock, the ball's going to take a bad bounce. Cons, and there was a lot of them. Non-uniform, poor traction when it was wet, excessive traction when it was dry, very hard, very abrasive. I don't know if you remember watching football in the 80s and 70s. Guys wore, their whole arms were covered. Today kids wear it because they think it looks cool, but we had to wear it because we looked like we just got out of a meat grinder after playing, a football game on that stuff. High crown asphalt base for the drainage. So big crown fields, very bouncy for baseball, a lot of ground rule doubles, a lot of paint buildup. You painted that stuff. instead of now it's actually being manufactured in that color. And it was very expensive. So the marketplace was very limited. It didn't find its way to many K through 12 schools, which I know most of us who are on the call are. Okay, the impact. Gen 1. To the market, artificial turf was reserved for the highest budgets. Universities, multi-use stadiums such as the Astrodome. Obviously, had to go in the Astrodome because you couldn't go grass in there, right? Okay, so to the mission, few cities or schools could afford the product, especially for a very non-grass-like surface. Perception of injuries and abrasive. It didn't take people very long to realize after playing very highly competitive, contact to the ground type of sports, that this stuff is going to chew you up a little bit. So let's go back to the drawing board. So in the 80s, okay, trying to make it more grass-like. Same mission. Okay, we went to this kind of infield, sand-filled product made out of polypropylene. Okay, this is just kind of a cross section. You see the small pad underneath here. I think it had about an inch high pile height, and then the rest is full of sand. So these little blades at the very top are kind of what you're, the only thing that you're playing on. And there's a good picture of it. I have no idea where that installation was, but here's some of the pros of that system. Very similar to the pros of the Generation 1 turf. No water, no maintenance, very durable. Didn't have an asphalt base. And now we finally did inlaid marking. So that kind of got rid of the paint buildup, so to speak. The actual lines, whether it be soccer, whether it be football, whether it be baseball, could actually be inlaid in the material itself. Well, what are the cons? Same, abrasive. One thing that was added is sand migration. So the actually Gen 1 had a little bit less maintenance. When you have sand, whether you have high winds, whether you have rain, that stuff will migrate. And you had this guy sweeping it in with a broom, okay, to make it more of a predictable surface. Still hard. Notice that the sand would compact and it would actually become harder in some instances than the Gen 1 surfaces. Expensive, but less expensive than the original AstroTurf because there is sand involved in it. Sand's a nickel a truckload. So here's the impact of the Gen 2 stuff to the market. Still reserved for high budgets, although more, it wasn't quite as expensive. It increased the marketplace a little bit. Went for a little bit, mid to late 80s, totally died off. And to the mission, exceedingly abrasive, negative perception after a few years. Total yearly market, 25 to 30 fields in the entire North American market during the 80s. So in the entire US, 25 to 30 fields is all that was installed with this Gen 2 surface. So the market went back to the only available option, short pile nylon. So basically reverted back to Gen 1. So before I go to the next one, which basically changed the whole industry, what we're all familiar with today when it comes to artificial grass, is there any questions so far? Awesome. Okay, so this is just little news articles. We don't have to read through this. This is kind of when, the negative perception started building, and we still face some of this today about artificial surfaces and more injuries, more concussions, all that. There was a negative perception, but still there's a lot of pent up demand. They knew that if we could come up with something, that was a little bit safer, that we didn't have the maintenance, then the whole industry would change. So this black swan event is kind of what we call this. And what is a black swan event? It's unexpected, it's impactful. And then also in retrospect, it seems as the event should have been very obvious, but this changed the entire industry. And here it is, Generation 3 infill systems, which we are all familiar with today. So 1997, the first commercially successful field service. It was a polyethylene sand and rubber field, unpadded, didn't have to have a pad underneath it, 2.5-inch pile height with the infill system playing on about the top inch, 3/4 of an inch surface. Obviously, you see the University of Nebraska And we can see the line. This is a field turf invention, and it was what changed our industry. And I've got some interesting charts here to show you that. So this is the estimated North American fields. So you see when the first field was installed here in the early 60s, you go all the way up the line here. You know, we said the mid 80s was Gen 2, not a whole lot of change. This first commercially installation here, University of Nebraska, I think it was 97, 98. And then look at the absolute rapid growth of installations across the country. It's unbelievable. It's a very eye-opening chart. Uh, and and we have predictions. Obviously, there's still a lot of demand, not only in our country but globally, for artificial turf systems. So now talking about Gen 3, before I go on to the next one, there's been a lot of it hasn't been stagnant. So the same system that was invented in the mid to early 90s that have been going on up until recently, there has been innovation, right? Because we still faced a lot of negativity. You know, you've heard about the PFAS, you've heard about the carcinogens possibly in the ground up rubber, and it's hot. And so there's always, you know, always things about it that we try as an industry to improve on. So all these different companies, ourselves included, you know, have different, we call them systems for different sports. And it's been unbelievable. You know, there's all kinds of, you know, to combat the black rubber. There's organic infills. You know, there's coconut fiber. There's wood chips. There's rounded off olive kernels, cork. All these things that you can put in the field based off whatever application you're looking for. There's cooling agents now that you could add to it that you know in some instances cool the fields 40 to 50 degrees. I remember as a coach, you know, we played on a field and we had some cheaper shoes, and it was so hot in August that it started melting the bottom of our kids' shoes. It was so hot. Now that was a long time ago. Um, but so it there has been change and there has been advancement in actually how the fibers are made to make it play different and be safer and all those types of things. There's so much, as you can see, the growth has also allowed for a lot of capital at these companies that they can put back into research and development and to make the product better. And it will never change. I mean, there's always going to be something to improve on when it comes to this product. And so I just think this is eye-opening, and it has been the norm. If I had a percentage to put on it, I don't know this exact number to this infill system that's across our country. I'd say 90-95% of the playing surfaces are this system, and it has been the standard in some form or fashion, whether it be rubber or any of the organics. So, any questions? I don't want to feel like I'm zooming through this, but um, all this to lead to what's coming up with for Generation 4 and what to be expected in the future, basically, is what I'm trying to do here. So let's go back and talk about Gen 3 stuff to the market, astronomical growth, as you saw, field turf and the entire industry. It was more affordable, more grass-like, improved perception, you know, facing all the negativity. And it was massively adopted at all levels. This is where it really tapped into our K through 12 market, especially, you know, at our K through 12 market, and not to, you know, grass fields are not, I mean, we don't have the budgets that the NFL or Major League Baseball, we can't manicure perfect playing surfaces. So you can really see a safety, you know, improvement in our K through 12 students when it comes to these type of services. So, um, and the only way was to fight this was to copy it, is to copy what Field Turf did. And that's the way it's been for 30, 40, however many years. Again, this is some of the negativity that we always face to this day. Your PFAS, we don't really talk a whole lot about it. You know, we've got people that really study into that stuff. The microplastics, the European Union banned polymeric infill in 2031 and beyond. Players are very vocal about the injury rates. Now, there are these studies right here, and there's been multiple third-party studies about the type of fiber that goes into the fields that increase a concussions or non-impact injuries. Those are readily available. Our company has them. Any other company that sells these products will have these studies. And for the most part, they play. And these are all tested against the most perfectly manicured grass fields across the world. And injury rates are really starting to come to level out non-contact injuries. And in some cases, if you put like elements to natural grass, whether it be rain or whatever, artificial surfaces actually play a little bit safer. So almost 30 years with little change. I talked about infield change and all that. So that has still led to, well, what don't you like about, well, they really don't like rubber pellets. My wife, as a coach's wife, hated rubber pellets because it would come into I'd drag it into the house in my shoes after being on field, and she'd find it in the washer and dryer. And so our industry has listened. And again, always trying to emulate natural grass. That's always been the same goal for all these decades. There's no rubber pellets in natural grass, right? So, what all that has led to is this. Okay, we are calling this the next generation Gen 4 Pivot Performance Turf, and it is a non-infill system. No more rubber pellets. So there's actually fiber that acts as the ballast to keep the fibers up and the cushion. You do have to put it on a pad, but it's texturized fiber system and layered, and it's been going through many iterations. As you can see at the top, what's that say? I can't see it on my screen. 50 iterations to get to this point. It's got extended play slip film fiber. It's the most proven and durable synthetic fiber in the history. And most of the industry standard for our systems in the past, rubber fill systems, has been 8 years. This system's coming with a 12-year warranty. Backing's different. And then it also comes with a cooling agent in the bottom of it to keep it about 30 to 40 degrees cooler than your standard rubber infill. So what it does is it creates a healthy, sustainable space for athletes to shine. Stable, consistently free of added PFAS. And the best part, after the extensive lifespan, this product is 100% recyclable. 100% recyclable. I'm not going to harp on all this. This is something that you can reach out to me to talk about how the play, the reverberation, the actual studies. This was developed to play like the most perfectly groomed natural fields, whether it be soccer, whether it be football, whether it be baseball. And oh, golly, already to the end of it. Well, that's very fast. I think I only took 25 minutes. But here's my contact information. And please jot it down. Reach out to me anytime. Reach out to Kara. They can get a hold of me. I guess Kara, if you don't want me to keep jabbering on, I guess we can open it up for questions.
Yeah, we did have a few questions pop up, and my kids both play lacrosse, and I remember those rubber pellets being all over my house when they're younger. It was a nightmare. So how long does it usually take to turn a grass field into a turf field?
Oh, outstanding question. Well, okay. Obviously, it's going to depend on size, whether you're doing a little small T-ball field or full. Let's just take a normal, since it's close to my heart, close to your heart, lacrosse, football, about the same size. Depending on how the subgrade is, if you don't have to stabilize the subgrade, you don't have to have a lot of work, we usually say about 60 to 90 days, about 3 months, depending on weather for that.
Next question. So once you have turf down, how long does it usually last? And what's the cost to replace a turf field versus the cost of like an initial install?
Oh, wow. That must have come from a superintendent. So Warranty, like I said, in the past, industry standards 8 years. This new product, since it's so dense with fiber, will warranty it for 12 years. Uh, a lot of it depends on play. So take an example. If you're at a rural community, smaller school that may just play football and soccer, you don't have that many kids. We've seen fields go 12, 14 years. If you're like in an Allen, Texas, that has 1,000 people in the band, they have 1,000 kids in every sport, and that thing's getting used from sun up to sundown, maybe a little bit less. I tell you, the what really hurts it more than what people think. It's not so much the play, it's UV. So it depends on where you're at. If you're in, Arizona, where the UV is running 8 to 10 every day, that really can degrade fibers. And again, most companies have fought that with using more UV stabilizer. And so that's not a big issue today as it was in the past. But I would say an average, you could average, we tell budget, for replacement 8 to 10 years, depending on your use and your location and the weather. So the cost to replace is obviously you don't have the expense of all the civil that goes into it, subgrade stabilization, whether you put it on drain stone, 6 inches of stone, laser grade level, to get it to perfect planarity, perfect density, all that stuff. That cost is gone now. So it's basically just like replacing carpet in your living room. You rip the old one out, you put the new one down, and that's less than half the cost. So if you spend $1 million, I'm throwing out a round number, to go from grass to turf on a football field, replacement in 10 to 12 years will be half that.
So I'm in Connecticut, so my kids are out there in January playing on ice and snow. So does that affect the turf as much as like the sun?
Yes, but not so much. If you have good draining, when it melts, what really affects it is how your maintenance staff clears the field when there's ice and snow on it. What are they using? Are they using a skid steer with just the blade going across? Yes, that can damage the surface and shorten the life. So what we use is something like that, but we tell them to put like pool noodles on it. Slit it and put it on the base where you can just drive across it. And yeah, and we say these are low maintenance. They're not no maintenance, right? You have to redistribute infill systems with the new non-infill systems. You don't. They are less maintenance than the infill systems. But no, that's a great question. If your drainage isn't good, then if it's in standing water, which it shouldn't be, if it was built correctly, then the ice and snow would not affect it as much as UV.
How do maintenance procedures / timeframes differ now from Gen 3?
Oh, okay, great question. Well, we say on Gen 4 surface, there's no redistributing of the infill, right? So let's take an old infill system that has wood chips in it. You put wood chips in it instead of black rubber. It's a cooling agent. You don't have to worry. It's organic. All those things. Well, what does wood do? It floats, right? So if you get a rain, that wood's going to come up and it's going to migrate. Based on the flow of the water, and then your maintenance staff's going to have to come out, and corks the same way. Is going to have to come out with a push broom. They just know after a big rain, they're going to meet at the football field at 7 a.m. with a push broom, and they're going to try to redistribute all that infill. Gen 4 with a non-infill system, there's none of that. We say, and also with infill system, they usually come with a groomer that will redistribute the infill, kind of vacuum up stuff, pick up stuff, stand up the fibers a little bit more. Should be doing that at least once a month to prolong your field. But in a Gen 4, we say you just got to blow it off with a blower. I mean, there's really all that other stuff goes away.
Okay, this one's a two-part question.
Yep.
So regarding maintenance on a typical football / soccer field, one, how often should the impact testing GMAX
Emacs.
done? And two, does someone in facilities would need to be certified to maintain the field?
No, you can call us. Now, like I can only speak for us, right? And I'm sure everybody else does like the same thing. So if you purchase a field, we build it, we go out through everything. Your local maintenance people will have a maintenance seminar, and we tell you not to sign off on the project until everybody on your current staff is familiar with how to take care of the product. You get a manual, you get a groomer, you get all of that stuff. Okay, what was the second part of that question?
Oh, does someone in facilities need to be certified to maintain the field?
Oh, GMAX is what we're, so no, you don't have to be certified to maintain the field, but when it comes to GMAX testing, now that is important. So we can facilitate that for you. We don't do it. It'll be a third party. Protect you guys, protect our company. I would say depending on the type of system you have. So like if you have a paved in place pad underneath your rubber infill, you probably don't have to GMAX until year 5, and you can call your salesman who's familiar with the product, just have them come look at it. They can see how the fibers are laying, they can feel with their own feet, and they may come to you and say, look, just to be safe, let's GMAX this. And you want a third party to do that because as a salesperson, which I'm not, I'm a co-op person. You don't want the own company coming out, oh yeah, this is bad. Let's go ahead and get you a new field. You want third party testing.
Okay. So if you had to name one reason, if I had to sell this to my board or my town or whatever, if you had to name one reason why turf surfaces are better for my school or town than grass, what would it be?
The first thing that comes to mind, Kara, is playability. You are not going to miss practice, miss a game because you had a 3-inch rain the night before. It just doesn't happen. You can play. You can go play. You're not going to miss time. Another thing is the entire town can use this. If you have a beautiful grass football field and your little league wants to come play underneath the nice lights and whatever on a Thursday night before Friday night, you're probably going to tell them no because you don't want them messing up the grass field before the high school plays. All that goes away. The whole community can use this. So to answer your question, is playability and availability. And now this is me personal, so I want to separate myself from our company just as a coach and a player. I haven't felt safe a lot of times on natural grass fields because they're not even. There could be a rock. They haven't been properly maintained. You don't have any of that with an artificial surface. It is perfect. And so I would say that that's just my personal opinion, is I feel safer on them.
Okay. I think that is all the questions we have. I thought this was super interesting. So thank you, Jeremy, for your time and expertise. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. If you have any follow-up questions, you can reach out to Jeremy or your AEPA state representative. And if you're not sure who that is, you can go to our website at aepacoop.org and look at the contact section. Our next webinar, we're going to skip December because it's a busy month for everyone. So our next webinar will be January 21st, and it will feature DEX imaging. So we'll hope that you'll join us again for that session and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Bye.